Today I want to talk briefly about one of the battles that are going on in the middle of everything we're facing right now, and that is the battle for our mind. In Philippians chapter 4, we are given three actions and attitudes to take to combat pressure, basically how to be at peace under pressure. And the first one is to rejoice in the Lord always. The second one is to let our gentleness towards each other be evident to everyone. And then the third one is to not be anxious about anything. So rejoice, be kind, and don't worry. Now, if you've tried to do one or all of these three, you've found that each of them are very challenging to pull off. And that is because there are thoughts that tend to undermine each one of these three. And so after these three are mentioned in Philippians chapter 4, in verse 8 of the same chapter, we read this. It says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." Now, many of us use a to-do list to help focus our efforts around the things that we really need to accomplish in a given day or week. And this is really God's to-think list. The purpose of this list is to help focus our minds on the kinds of thoughts that are really most beneficial for us. So let's take a quick look through each of the items on the list. First of all, we are told to think about whatever is true. This is the first one on the list because, well, it's the most important one. The question that we need to ask for this one is, what does God say about what I am thinking right now? Is it true or is it false? The first step that I would recommend in this is to begin thinking about what you are thinking about. Usually we don't really think about what we're thinking about. The thoughts that we have in our mind just kind of come and go unmonitored without us even, imagining what we're thinking about. So I think it'd be helpful for us to begin to think about what we're thinking about. One suggestion on this is if you're feeling a negative emotion, use that kind of like as a red light on the dash of your car. It's an indicator that something's maybe off in the way you're thinking. And so trace that negative emotion and begin to think, what are the thoughts that are driving this negative emotion? So first of all, think about whatever is true. Secondly, it says, think about whatever is noble. The question on this is, what good can I do right now that will endure, that will stand the test of time? The word noble describes something that is unchangeable. It's unaffected by the circumstances or by time. So, for example, a noble gas is a gas that is unaffected by other gases. A noble deed is an act that is going to last over time and into eternity. So the question that would be helpful for us to think about on this is, what can I do right now that would be pleasing to God? That's something that's going to last for eternity. It's going to stand the test of time. And maybe what is it that I can do to serve other people, to love other people? That's going to stand the test of time. Number 3 says, think about whatever is right. The question here is, what is the next right thing for me to do? In times like these, our tendency is to let our minds look too far down line and head in the future and to get into anxiety and worry. And what we do then is we miss the opportunities that are right in front of us. So it's very helpful to focus our mind right in front of us and think, what's the next right thing for me to do? Number 4 says, think about whatever is pure. The question here is, how can I reduce my exposure to impure thoughts? There's a lot of impurity in our world, and the question is, how can we keep our minds clean and pure in the middle of all the impurity? As we're all at our homes more and more, there's usually probably a pretty big increase in screen time that's going on right now. So I would just caution you to really watch what you're watching. Don't let garbage just begin to fill into your minds. By the way, reading the Bible and memorizing verses in the Bible are kind of like carrying mental hand sanitizer. It really helps purify and clear your mind. The next one is, think about whatever is lovely. The question here is, what is it that elevates my perspective on life? Beauty is one of the great ways to kind of get our eyes to see further and to resize what's going on in our life. So go ahead and go outside and enjoy the beauty that God has made. Maybe listen to some beautiful music, but give yourself breaks during the day where you can raise your perspective and get outside and look at beauty or listen to music. Last week, I didn't plan this, but I realized at one point I'd gone 4 days without stepping outside. That was not good for me. I had a hard time at different points with perspective, and that was one of the reasons I just didn't get outside often enough to lift my eyes about whatever is lovely. The next thing says, whatever is admirable. The question here is, what's positive and not negative? What's constructive and not critical? Now, the vast majority of our thoughts just tend to be more negative rather than positive. And so we need to work on thinking about whatever is admirable, whatever is positive and not negative. And I would just caution us all as we watch a lot of news, trying to get updates on what's going on with the virus, and we need to do that. But if we watch too much news, it just has a way of turning our mood and our thoughts really negative. As we watch more and more news, at least as I watch more and more news, I tend to get more upset and tend to get more fearful. So just limit your news intake to really what you need to watch. And then the summary statement is this: if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. In other words, the idea is if there's a speaker that was attached to your brain and everything that you were thinking was being broadcast, what would make the cut and what would not? In other words, what's excellent or praiseworthy? What would you want other people to hear you thinking, and what would you want them not to hear? And then go ahead and cut out the thoughts that you wouldn't want other people to hear. So let me read the verse again. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things.